This is a choke that we call clock, and actually there's a lot of variations. We'll show you the basic idea and then some of the variations, then some of his reactions and how to make best use of those. Now, the basic idea of the clock, and it's called clock because my feet will eventually walk the clock face. It will go from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and if all goes well, he should be asleep before midnight. So from here, I'm going to walk my feet around here, but because of that movement and my feet walking around, people tend to emphasize that, when in actual fact, the most important part of a choke is what's going on with my wrist and where my weight is, and it's not really much to do with my feet at all. If I take a grip with my thumb inside David's far lapel, so that's the grip I want. It's a thumb inside grip right across the neck, which is a very natural action from here. My thumb comes straight in the neck. It's easy to get that thumb in. Now if I pop my wrist up, so I'm getting this kind of action, a popping action with my wrist up here, David's natural reaction to that is to get his head up and away from my wrist. So him pulling his head up and away from my wrist is what causes my problems. So I have to get my weight, which is essentially on his back, where if we think about it, he can support a lot of weight, particularly right here between his shoulders. He's built for that, and even more weight on his hips. So when I'm here and I get that grip and I do that wrist pop with this hand, I need to prevent David from being able to get relief by popping up. One of the most common problems here is people pull their elbow up, but if I pull my elbow up, you can see that causes a natural rotation on David's head. I don't want his head to rotate. I want that little wrist popping action and not an arm pulling action. So from here, when I'm here, 1, my hand goes in deeply. Okay? 2, I need to insert my right hand under and control this arm. The reason I'm doing that is if I don't do that, David can then rotate easily to his left. He can rotate through this way and basically undo the choke. So what stops that is if I get this grip on his arm. One of the problems with that, putting that hand in for that grip though, is I'm susceptible to being rolled over in that direction, like this. So I've got to watch that. Before I insert this hand, I get my weight from the center of his back and put it on this shoulder here. That makes it very hard for this lever to rotate that way and for David to roll me. So 1, if I'm going to reach in, I shift my weight back to this shoulder. Reach in, make a track. Thumb inside, grab David's wrist. Now I'm going to do the wrist popping action with this hand. But before I do that, I shift my weight off David's shoulders completely onto his head. That stops him from lifting his head up. At this point, if I do that wrist popping action, the choke's going to come into effect. So all my legs walking around here do is they take up any slight little flex in the garment or any movement on the garment, they take up any slack. But mostly the clock should work right there and then with almost no footwork at all. So once again, shift my weight to here so I can safely insert the hand, make a track, insert the left thumb, get a deep grip, as deep as I can. Right hand takes hold of his wrist. Most important part now, 2 things. 1, shift my weight off and onto his head so his head is plastered into the floor and he can't lift it up, not even a millimeter. Now I'm going to pull up with my wrist. There's the tap. I'm now going to do that again, but I'm going to walk my feet at the same time. Most common problem with this is people do the elbow pulling up, but also as they move their feet around here, their head comes back. Because most other times when we're training in jiu-jitsu, every time we switch our base to the front, our head comes up as well. That's a very common action. But if I do that, that allows David's head to come up and he gets relief on the clock. So I need to make sure his head remains planted in the mat while I switch my base and walk my feet to the front. So once more before we get into any variations. Shift my weight, collar, thumb inside, wrist control. Shift my weight, wrist pop and leg work. And there's the clock. The other common variations are really about what this hand here is doing.